The only problem with that, the girls parody, the James Schmatt character, is that she didn't push Lena Dunham's character nearly far enough outside of her comfort zone. Not nearly. It's like cocaine, threesome. I mean, you gotta push them a lot further than that, which is what I'm gonna talk about today. All right. I wanna tell you a bunch of things today that I've never told anyone before, dead serious. But if you say that I'm the one that told you, I'm totally gonna deny it. So don't even try with that. You're on your own from here. I want to talk to you today about some publishing secrets. I want to talk to you about some hopefully takeaway-filled, like industry seminar-y kind of secrets. Also want to talk to you about some of the good kind. I wanted to call this presentation this title, but it didn't fit on the little submission form that you had to type in. There are only a certain number of characters. So we had to change it to what we have now. But I wanted to show you that original title just because I wanted you to know that I am at my most comfortable by far when I'm being entirely inappropriate. And you know who knows that really well? The HR department at Say Media, which is the wonderful, awesome, and very understanding company, the parent company of Jane and Exovain, my new beauty site, which you heard a little bit about, which I'm super excited about. They know this because they have had to rewrite the employee handbook 4 times in the slightly over a year that I've been at the company. Yes. All right. I want to go ahead and show you some secrets. Here we go. Okay, really important to surround yourself with people who are even freakier than you are. And just to be clear, I love these freaks. I'm a total freak myself. I was born in Bolinas, California, to a mother at whose 40th birthday party, the band that was playing in our yard wore nothing but gold spray paint. So how was it gonna turn out? Normal? I don't think so. And that is why I surround myself at work with these even bigger freaks. And I throw in a couple of token businessy types too, just to balance it out, but they make me feel, they make me feel somewhat sane. So part of that means hiring people who are super, super smart, but also they're messy, they're complicated. Sometimes they get incarcerated, sometimes they get institutionalized. We'll get to that. Brings me to Kat Marnell. I don't know if you guys have heard of her. She was the beauty editor at exojane.com. And she's the one that told Page 6 when she was leaving her job with me, she said she was leaving so that she could go and smoke angel dust on a rooftop somewhere. But that was after she wrote this series of stories for me on everything from a business trip to Miami to this one on how to find the ultimate hair conditioner to this one describing a really nice, cheap, at-home facial. Yes. Actually, that's not real menstrual blood. But if anyone wants to try it, I've been still wanting someone to do that for me. I think it could, it's natural, it could be good. So that would be an assignment for anyone if they're interested. Okay, by the way, Kat, she owes me $100 still. She was often away from work for 2 weeks at a time. And my managing editor, who's here with me, who actually cares about stuff like people showing up or producing content, that kind of thing, she does not miss Kat being there at all. But I actually do, because I feel like Kat is a really brilliant, one-of-a-kind freak. So I'm still hoping that she gets it together and we get to work together again. I've actually always hired people like Kat, but in the days of Sassy and Jane magazines, which are 2 previous incarnations of the one good idea I've had, and I just keep repeating it in different media, every issue would come out monthly, so the pace of all the freakiness was much more manageable. For example, I had a writer at Jane magazine who wanted to Oh, and by the way, I'll just say also, with all my asides, I know it's really obnoxious that I name everything after myself. I used to lie, and I used to say that a focus group picked the name for Jane magazine. It doesn't even make sense. Like, it's not even a good lie at all. Why would they pick that, of all random things? Anyway, okay, so this writer at Jane magazine, she wanted to write a story about Adderall when that first came out on the market. And she thought the only way that the story would be really interesting would be if she were to take Adderall while she was writing the story. And I agreed with her. And so in those days, though, she could, Esther, who wrote the story, she could go to rehab, she could get all cleaned up and sober and everything. By the time her mom even got the subscriber copy in the mail, it was like, no problem. Plus, you get a lot of really good, efficient work out of her in the meantime. Yes. Okay, cut to 10 years later, and we have this going up on ExoJane.
TV director Kat Marnell, and I'm about to snort a line of bath salts. Follow the record, this is because I've been in negotiations for a raise. You got it? Got this?
Oh, God.
Oh, like that way, right? Yeah.
Okay, so that goes up on ExoJane before I could even Google to confirm whether the bath salts that are the drug that's called bath salts were actually, in fact, different from the Crabtree and Evelyn kind that she was snorting in the office. But I did confirm these were definitely not the hallucinogenic variety of bath salts. Freak is a really general term, though, and I think the artistry to all of this comes in with the nuances, like the different substrata of the type of freak that you surround yourself with. And one thing that's really important is not everyone should be like Kat. The balance is really important. I believe strongly that, especially on startups, every single person that you hire, everyone should bring a different perspective, a different personality. They shouldn't agree with each other, and they shouldn't always get along, because that kind of friction is what keeps you growing, especially during those early stages. So when I'm hiring, I always make sure that I have one person on staff that the readers are going to love, one that they're going to hate, and one that they're going to have a crush on. It's like my version of the winning the trifecta or something when I get all three of those things at one time. And I think that I got that idea from watching too much All My Children when I was in college instead of going to class, but I'm not entirely sure. Okay, secret number 2. Really important to use your disdain for your boss or the powers that be to fuel your own venture. The Wikipedia version is that I started Sassy magazine, a year and a half out of college, never having to work my way up through the ranks the way that the other editor-in-chiefs had to. But the truth is, I actually had a bunch of really shitty jobs for that year and a half. Everything from cleaning out the record library at Rolling Stone to making sure that my editor's morning vodka was perfectly chilled. I am not joking. I could not make this up. When I was an editorial assistant, to, being assistant editor at a bunch of print magazines that don't exist anymore. But the toughest one of all was the job that I had right before I started Sassy, and that was when I was 22 and I was associate editor at this magazine called Teenage. And the one thing at Teenage was that my editor-in-chief wanted all of the headlines to be puns. That was her thing. Okay. I have always thought of puns as a way to show the audience that the writer is a little more clever than they are, as opposed to really connecting on the same level as the audience, the way that I really like to do. And I still feel this way, which is why I sent around a screenshot of this to my staff just last week with a note just saying no, don't do that. You know what, I actually feel the same way now about puns. I feel the same way about the misuse of hashtags. So I just have to throw this in here. It's very important, very close to my heart. It's, I think it's one thing to use hashtags the way they're intended to be used on Twitter, of course, but it's another thing to write at the end of a blog post or whatever, to write like hashtag first world problem, to be like, you know, trying to show the audience that you know that what you just wrote is kind of superficial and lame or something. I think that's the idea behind that. But it's also, oh, another thing, using hashtag anything in conversation. No, no. It's like when people say LOL. I'm like, it's already OL. There is no need to ever say that. You can laugh. So at that teenage magazine job, I would like stomp back to my desk after meetings with my editor, adding to this mental checklist of all the things that I was gonna do differently, you know, that I would do differently if I were the boss. I feel like everybody does that. I don't know. I still very much do that. And on that list were things like no calorie counts, know how to get a boyfriend, you know, all these kinds of things that we saw in all the teen magazines at that time. And that list is what I presented to the Australian company that I had heard was interested in getting into the American market with a new teen magazine. Well, awkwardly, my editor at Teenage also went and presented her ideas to the same company, but I was the one that they went with for it. And I say that just as a reminder to ignore anyone or even like the voice inside yourself that says you might be underqualified for something. I think it's just really important to go for it, be bold, be preposterous in whatever you go for. Because I'll tell you something else, it was never that quick or easy again. Jane magazine took me 3 years to get off the ground. exojane.com took me about 5 years from conception to iteration. So you also never want to outgrow that like blind ambition kind of thing that you have when you're young, or that sense, which is kind of like a youthful delusion thing, but it's a sense that your ideas are just perfect, because that definitely fades over time. And the more and more you get shot down, the more that fades. So I got that editor-in-chief job at Sassy. Sassy was not named yet. We were testing a bunch of really, really bad names, like Dawn, Fawn, me, she, Dee. Yes. But because I was 24, and yeah, as Ted said, I was like the youngest editor-in-chief of a national magazine ever. And I think that while print magazines are still in existence, we should get somebody to go break that record, because it's been like 25 years. You know, there's still like an opportunity there while we still have print magazines around. But they put in, I was 24, so they put in a consulting editor who had about 20 years of experience, just in case I couldn't actually do the job, and in case they just needed to make me like a figurehead or something, which I would really love to be in my next life. But I never consulted with her, though she was like really nice and willing and everything. But one of the most fun parts of it was bringing all these other young people on board with me and watching them become really well known. Not just people who worked for me, like Spike Jones, who was a location scout and then he became a writer and editor, or Chloe Sevigny, who was an intern at Sassy and then a model also, you see here. Like, we were all doing double, triple duty back in those days. But also the people that we wrote about. Like, people often will accuse me of being a celebrity name dropper, and I totally am. Like, any chance you give me, I will drop a celebrity name. But I excuse it by saying that it's because they weren't famous when I knew them, and I actually got to be part of making them famous. That's my excuse anyway. And so I'm talking about people like this aspiring model who came up to the Sassy magazine offices one day wanting to get into the business. I don't know, do you guys recognize her? Is that pretty obvious with the lips and everything? Okay. Jennifer Aniston also was a model in an early Sassy magazine fashion show that we did at some dorky club in New York. And then these other aspiring artists that I featured in Sassy and Jane magazines before people knew who they were. So because that blind, like, youthful enthusiasm thing that I was talking about, I ignored what all of my mentors in magazine publishing and that seasoned editor who was put in just in case I couldn't actually do the job. I ignored what they told me that I needed to do if I wanted Sassy Magazine to stay in business, which was that along with these like articles about these superficial, the superficial articles about like beautiful people and that kind of thing, I also ran from the very first issue of Sassy in every issue, starting back in 1988, stories that were really important to me philosophically to run, but that did get a lot of people really, really riled up. I'll show you some of those. There was actually another article, too, along with these, that was explaining how you could get STDs from oral sex. And the moral majority made that out to be like Jane Pratt's blowjob tutorial for teens or something. It was really, like, they took it really far. And I can't show you that one because it got pulled off the printing press, like halfway through the print run and shredded. So, next secret, number 3, is torch your bridges. Okay. That story about how you can contract STDs from oral sex, it got way misconstrued, as I said. And along with stories we ran on gay teenagers, on incest, on birth control, they got the attention of my friend Jerry Falwell, Reverend Donald Wildman, and 10,000 or so women with like way too much time on their hands. They started a letter writing campaign. They started an advertiser boycott and newsstand protests that caused us to lose all of our major advertisers and get taken off of 50% of our newsstands. So, but what was bad for those parts of the business, and they did eventually lead Sassy to get sold to Teen Magazine and turned into what we used to call the anti-Sassy, and then eventually led to the magazine's demise, were really great for publicity at the time and really put Sassy Magazine on the map. But more important to me, they were really great for girls and women because with the content I produce, with the projects I take on, the people I work with, I believe really, really strongly in bringing other women up rather than tearing them down. And I think it's always important to remember that someone else's loss is not your gain, and someone else's gain is not your loss. But I think especially when it comes to women, I think it's really important to remember that a success for one woman is a success for all women, because the media, even though it seems so archaic, but the media is so intent still on pitting women against each other in competition for a husband, like Bachelor style or whatever, or in competition for that one high-level job that only one woman could possibly get. So for me, helping to reverse that by promoting other women, supporting other women, has been the motivating factor behind every project that I've ever done, and still is to this day. Thank you. So in general, I do encourage torching bridges, anarchy, rebellion, all that kind of stuff, and we have to do those kinds of things so that we can continue to make strides for women and for people. But even I do break down every once in a while, and I do something professional. So I wanted to show you some examples of that to redeem myself, such as Ashton Kutcher's nipples. Okay, he is the only person ever in my publishing career who has asked me to airbrush out his nipples. So yes, I did it. I went along with it. This picture, you could see if you look closely, we just raised the water level by about 6 inches in the hot tub, and it looks kind of fake if you get up close to it. Also, another example of something professional I did was that I ate veal at Anna Winter's house after being a vegetarian for 13 years, because if you are at Anna's dining room table and it's just you, Salman Rushdie, Carolina Herrera, Oscar de la Renta, and Samuel L. Jackson, and the chef serves you all veal, and you want those ad dollars from Oscar and Carolina, you eat the fucking veal. So, back to my burning bridges, my specialty. 2 years after we launched Jane magazine, it was doing so well, as Ted mentioned, that Condé Nast bought it for like $100 million. It was $660 million for Jane and a couple of other properties. And then Si Newhouse installed a new president and publisher. And the publisher and I, we disagreed about like all the little things. Like they stopped showing me the, this is so inside, but it's like they stopped showing me the creative that was going onto the blow-in cards. You know, those are those little things that obnoxiously fall out when you're in the checkout aisle or whatever, the subscription cards. They stopped showing me that creative, and they would run like pages and pages of advertorials using phrases like your lackluster tresses instead of just saying, you know, your dirty hair. And, you know, we all make compromises. We make compromises every single day, many, many times a day. But you know what you know. You have your idea. You have your voice. You have your vision. And if someone's asking you to water down your vision, the problem there is that you risk losing your passion for what you're doing. And I feel like it takes a tremendous amount of passion to keep doing things that are new and innovative every single day. So, you know, while it might seem crazy that I parted ways with a magazine that had my name as the logo, and, you know, it might have been crazy, I feel like if anybody ever calls hair anything other than hair, you know they're lying to you, right? And if they're gonna lie to you about a little thing like that, then they're gonna lie to you about a big thing. And I just didn't want Jane magazine to be a lie. I know, I'm crazy. Secret number 4. A lot of you guys are drunk all day. Don't do that. No, I actually added in this secret just for you because I've been so inspired by what I've seen here in the last couple of days at South by Southwest. Yeah, it's really, truly impressive. No, I think that it's you know, it's great when other people are out like getting hammered and all that. To be the one that's working, that was kind of always my role. But a related tip also is learning, if you are going to be the sober one, learning to say, like, that's interesting, that's interesting, that's interesting, when you're not listening to what the drunk person is saying. I do a lot of that. So that's basically all the wisdom there is to be found in that little secret. Basically, like, do your drinking by yourself at night, unless you're like a crazy addict that I'm hiring, in which case ingest way more substances than you ever thought humanly possible. Okay, moving on. Secret number 5. If you have ever read an internet comment, you know, everybody hates everybody that they don't know. And you know what it reminds me of? In Silence of the Lambs, you know the kidnapped girl's mother, she's at a press conference, right? And she keeps repeating her daughter's name over and over again so that the serial killer will see her daughter as a person and not like a potential skin suit. Okay, that's the way I think about YouTube. I think that all YouTube posters should like keep repeating their own names over and over again, or like interject pictures of themselves as a cute baby or something for empathy purposes. Because we have commenters on ExoJane, for example, who they started out as complete trolls. I mean, leaving comments like these. A whole bunch of people who were really mad at my mom for a while. But now they're almost human beings. And that's because we were able to flip them. And the way that I flip them is by, first of all, responding, always responding, validating what they're saying, offering up something that is something personal about myself that's like a mistake or flaw. Like, you know, something like, I hear what you're saying. Sorry, I didn't take my meds this morning. You know, I'll say something like that. Or and it's always true. I'm not making any of it up. Or I'll be like, oh, yeah, I'm just a little off because I haven't had sex in 10 months, you know. And then they'll respond. And they'll be like, I didn't take my meds this morning either. Oh, my God, I haven't had sex in 11 months. It's like, you're my new BFF. We're separated at birth. We're Siamese twins. You know, they go on and on and on and on. So you got to just know that people's default setting is to not like you and work from there. And you embrace that. Focus on how big your unpopularity is and only feel like a failure if you are only pissing off a very small number of people. Because if you don't piss people off, then you're not doing anything important or different or anything that's going to be remembered a year from now, in my opinion. And once you accept someone not liking you, then that person can totally fall in love with you. It's embarrassing, but I did this with Drew Barrymore, for example. Yes. Okay, brace yourselves. This is going to be some tour de force name droppery right here. Okay, I was at a party in, I told you I was going to tell you things I've never told anybody. Here we go. Okay, I was at a party in about 95, right around the time that I left Sassy magazine to not be able to get Jane magazine started for like 2.5 long years. But if you look in Wikipedia, it's that I left Sassy to start Jane. So that's another like little sub-secret, is that you never get fired. There's never any gap between jobs. They have to like all overlap and stuff. Okay, so I was at that party, and I'm like squeezing past Brad and Gwyneth, you know, giving Robert Downey Jr. a little air kiss. He's like high as a kite, so he didn't even notice. And then Michael Stipe comes over to introduce me to Drew Barrymore. And this is her version of what happened.
We met on this very funny term. You know, our friend Michael Stipe introduced us, and he said, "Oh, do you know Jane Pratt? Do you know who she is?" You know, and I was like, "Oh yeah, you know, whatever." And he was like, "This is Jane Pratt," and I was like, "Oh, hi, how you doing?" I was like, "You know what? I'm not even going to apologize because I'll just seem like a bigger idiot." Yeah. You know. And we ended up becoming friends, and she's just this lovely, lovely, effervescent woman.
Okay, what she really said was not like whatever, whatever. She really said, "I fucking hate Jane Pratt." And I said, you know, "Hi, I'm Jane Pratt. I haven't had sex in 11 months. No, I didn't. I said, "Hi." I said, "Hi, I'm Jane Pratt." And then, you know, she said how much she hated my talk show at the time, my TV talk show that I was doing. And I said, "So did I." And then we like talked about it, and we got to be really good friends. And we stayed close for like a really long time after that, as you might have heard. But I'm not confessing to anything here. I did not give this story to the National Choir. They got something on their own. Okay. Secret number 6, show your metaphorical vagina. Okay, everybody talks about transparency. Most especially the people that are hiding the most stuff, I find. And there's so much supposed transparency now via social media, like every meal someone eats, you know, goes up on Instagram, or every bar, you know, gets a check-in on Foursquare, or Facebook is like the place to announce your engagement or your divorce. But it's when you take things a step further than that that I feel like transparency gets really exciting. And beyond transparency means like showing your whole self in a really real, deeply honest, raw way. At Sassy, at Jane Radio, Exo Jane, and now Exo Vane, we've always strived to be radically transparent about our flawed lives, our real bodies, our un-PC-ness, our unpopular opinions. And beyond transparency, it's like something more naked than nudity. And at Exo Jane, this sometimes gets very close to literal. But the challenge also with this is finding writers who want their names and their faces and other body parts to be known everywhere, and then encouraging them to put themselves out there in very personal ways to get that. Now, I'm a little bit more subtle than that, but hardly. I actually just do it by asking writers to try one time showing something about themselves that they would consider unflattering, embarrassing, too personal, something that they've never shown anyone before, and then demonstrating to them the amazing response they get from the community when they do that. and I do it myself too. You know, people think that it's like, they think it's like really difficult to get the digital community invested in your product or whatever, and I don't know, they come up with these things I don't even understand, these technological metrics or like back-end ideas or whatever for how to get readers engaged. And I just think it's not that hard. It's like, I got actually 1,000 comments on something that I wrote in like 2 minutes the other day while I was waiting for the doctor. Show your vagina. It's pretty obvious. Okay. We have shown readers our bellies, our fatkinis, our morning faces, and readers have responded by showing us theirs, like in the tens of thousands of responses we've gotten. So XO Jane, it's not a place where readers are going to get like a superfluous slideshow or an optimized headline. And clickbait will work to get them there one time, just the same as putting free sex on the cover of a magazine will work to get someone to pick it up that one time. But they're not going to stay, they're not going to come back, they're not going to really get invested and really share if the content that you've baited them to come check out isn't actually compelling and meaningful to them. So I feel like sites that are first and foremost trying to figure out how to juice more traffic out of Facebook, or asking things like, you know, what's your Pinterest strategy? I feel like they could put more time into, or put some of that time into thinking about what they really want to say and saying that. Even sponsored content, when we do it, like we were just showing here at XO Jane, if it's sponsored, we'll put like a graphic across the top saying, you know, sponsored content, AKA Charlotte's college fund, and Charlotte's my 10-year-old daughter. You know, just like be open about what we're doing. At the same time, as in this example, if we want a lot of page views, we'll just say, click a lot, because we need our bonuses this quarter. So can you click around a whole lot right now? And then people will do it, and they're happy to do it because you're being honest with them. So really important, just like be honest about what you're doing all the time. Which brings me to secret number 7. The ways that we in the media lie to you constantly. We lie, I think, often in the media more easily than we tell the truth. And it's not just me, it's like, I feel like pretty much everybody does it. In print magazines, the publishers would do it like this, okay? We, at Sassy magazine, would go around on sales calls and we would say that 6 girls are reading that copy of Sassy over the shoulder of the subscriber in the dorm room. And that's how we would arrive at like a 6 million circulation figure that we would present to advertisers. There's an accepted industry term for that particular lie. It's called pass-along readership. And, you know, it's just so funny, like you picture being out on a sales call and you're like, yeah, our newsstand sales are this, our subscriber base is that, but our pass-along is through the roof. And it's like totally just a bogus concept that you made up. I've also had the joy of going on sales calls to advertisers of my satellite radio show and telling them that we know we have 2 million listeners because of an extrapolation of like how many people go to our website, and therefore that many people must be listening to the show or something. Anyway, it's not scientific. And I'd love to stand here and say like, oh, I had this big come to Jesus moment and I don't want to, you know, fudge this stuff anymore. The truth is, you just can't lie like you used to be able to in the good old days. It's really a bummer. I feel like everybody now everybody with a ComScore account can see your numbers, so you just can't get away with the kind of stuff you used to be able to. And since most of you have one, here are ours, for those of you who didn't already look. But where I think the industry is heading, and I'm really happy to be part of this push, is getting away from it being about sheer numbers of uniques or page views or followers or email subscriber lists. What I really care about and what I think the industry is going to start caring about more and more is how deeply the readers are invested. Here are ExoJane's current engagement metrics. So what I do is I focus even beyond this, not only on how many comments readers leave, but I focus on the comment threads that turn into entirely new discussions, like covering territory that had nothing to do with the original post, and sometimes lead to an assignment for the writer of that comment because what they said was so eloquent and well thought out. Also, I focus on the get-togethers in various cities of the ExoJane commenters who want to meet each other in person. I feel like in whatever I'm reading and wherever I'm reading it, the comments to me are the story. So my next great project actually is like, I want to get all the like development tech people, whatever they're called, I want them to start to measure, figure out how to measure how hard a commenter is pounding on the keyboard when they're leaving a comment, because that to me, that's like, you know, that's passion. I also was thinking, it'd be great if there were data that would, instead of just saying how many comments you've gotten, that would tell you whether the comments were just, I don't like this because this is lame, or I don't like this because of something that happened to me when I was a kid that I've never told anybody about before in my life, but I'm about to tell you right now because you've motivated me to do that. That's a whole different kind of comment. I also had this idea the other day that you could, that maybe they could do something where, I'll get Say Media on this, that do something where you could measure like the salt from the tears that fall onto the keyboard, because that's true passion, like that's true engagement. But the other thing is that engagement, it has to go both ways for it to really work. So I laugh with my readers, I cry with my readers, I take their awesome advice, I take their terrible advice. I threw away furniture out of my apartment because the readers had me convinced I had bed bugs. And that's the kind of thing that I do, for real. And as it turns out, I have actually said I love you to ExoJane commenters 141 times as often as I've said it to my boyfriend of 5 years. Yeah, I do, I go crazy. So I am really, really proud that ExoJane's growth and also how well ExoVane is doing already after just like 1 week in existence. I'm really proud that it's not because of gaming anything, but it's because I'm just doing the same things that I did at Sassy. You know, as Ted was mentioning, Sassy, sometimes people will say that Sassy was social media before social media existed, or that it was about engagement before that was like a buzzword. But I always wanted that type of relationship with my readers, so the staff and I would do things like, we'd go through mailbags and mailbags full of letters back in the old days, and we would write about the topics that they asked us to write about. We would fly in readers from all over the country once a year for these annual reader-produced issues. So we were doing our best with like the, you know, technology that we didn't have. But I am definitely emotionally invested in my community, day and night, to an almost unhealthy extreme, which is why I do this. Secret number 8. Okay. Oh, I'm glad you get it. I was like, I don't know if they're even gonna know what I'm talking about here. Okay. My daughter Charlotte, she always will call me out on my obsession with the ExoJane and ExoVane communities. She'll be like, I know you're talking to Catbutt or Kitten's Rule or whatever again, and you know, I'm just trying to sneak a comment or two in there while we're having dinner. Gosh. So, and this is what, she was up in the office the other day, and this is what she told one of my staffers happens when she and I are like playing together at home.
Many times, my mom forgot about me while we were playing hide and seek.
At your house?
For a long time.
How long was it?
A long time.
Yeah. I'm still trying to perfect the art of like saying, Charlotte, 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 like while I'm just, you know, working away at my laptop. I clearly haven't gotten it down yet. I think that when your engagement with your audience borders on like an obsessive, abusive, like codependent relationship kind of thing, that's when you're really actually doing something right, when you're that involved with them. But the number one rule for sticking around in this business is ignore that thing that people tell you about how no one ever lay on their deathbed thinking, I wish I had spent more time at the office. Okay, that's total bullshit. First of all, you can't know that until you're dead. So I don't know who's reporting that. I want to know why no one talks about the people who are dying that slow, like painful death, and they're like croaking out the words, or they can't even like, croak them out anymore because their vocal cords are totally shot or whatever. And they're lying there, so they have to take the rag from like next to their overflowing bedpan or whatever. And they have to scrawl onto it these words so they can show it to their cloying family members who are like still all standing around sobbing and everything, at the very end. And show them their note saying, I wish I had ignored all of you people and done whatever the fuck I wanted. God, because those are the people that built a fucking awesome empire. Thank you. I want your questions because then I know I'm talking about something that you actually want to know about. So really look forward to that. Thank you all so much. Ted, are you going to come out here and do it with me?
Yes, I am.
Thank you, honey.
Why don't we move to the chairs?
Yes.
That was awesome. How about another round of applause here for Jane? That was... This presentation is awesome because I got to learn a ton of things that she won't talk about if you just ask. All right, here's a great question from Sarah Best at Running List. What inspired you to ask people to write in the first person?
Yeah. I mean, I was always like, as a magazine reader, I was always most interested in the little picture you'd get of, that was behind the scenes at the photo shoot, or that was like a little insight into what was actually going on when they were putting together the more polished version that you were seeing. And I felt like, I wanted to do media that really was all about that behind the scenes and the real version of what was going on. And then the first person part, I guess it's just, to me, it's part of that. It's like, it's much more personal, really. And I also feel like the whole construct of writing things that aren't in first person, or writing, like doing unbiased journalism, I think everything is biased anyway. So you might as well just say it. You might as well say, this is how I feel about it, and go ahead and put it in first person, yeah.
All right, I'm gonna channel my Andy Cohen here. Where did you get that fabulous dress?
I know. I asked you guys on Twitter before I headed over which one I should wear, this one or the geometric. And you guys actually were going overwhelmingly for the geometric, so I totally ignored you, because this is the one I wanted to wear. This is Erdem. I don't know if you know ERDEM. And I don't own it, so I will be returning it after this. So let's take a lot of pictures and make the most of it. Yep.
I've worked with a lot of deep communities, and this is a real heavy one. So you've thrown a lot of people a lifeline by sharing others' real and raw stories. Does that ever feel like a burden? And how do you deal with it? How do you
That's a really, really good question. Okay. Does it ever feel like a burden to share other people's real and raw stories? Well, sure, because the stories don't, mostly I think when you share a really real, raw, honest story, what you're doing is like you're freeing up a ton of other people out there who have the same story or have a lot in common with the story, and just it hasn't been told. And so they feel like, I'm not the only one. And so that's the first thing. But then there is often, and I think maybe what this question is getting to a little bit is the burden of, once you share somebody's story and then the story doesn't end there, they get feedback to that story. And one of the things that's nice, though, and sometimes, their lives change because they've made the story public. One of the things that's nice now is, this used to happen like back in the Sassy and Jane days, but you didn't feel like you could really address it or take care of it as quickly as you would like to, and sometimes you couldn't at all because it was just like the story was out there, and as I said before, it's like 3 months before 3 months before the story even gets out there, and then by the time you hear the reaction to the story, it's already, you know, whatever, the mail and all that kind of stuff. It's already like months and months later. So now at least I feel like what we're doing is ongoing stories. So I feel like if someone puts something up on XO Jane and then gets you know, a reaction to that, then we can go ahead and deal with that. We can deal with that the next day and the next day and the next day and kind of work through it.
Is it a burden for you to be so closely and intimately feeling so many real-time challenges?
Is that what that question meant? Kind of?
That's where I want to take it.
That's interesting. See, I don't even go, I'm so codependent, I don't even go that way. I just go to like, how am I taking care of these people? Am I taking care of them well enough? Myself, how it affects me?
I mean, sometimes you must feel like you let them down or you could have done more.
Oh, of course, yeah. And it's definitely like, I mean, it definitely really weighs on me. And that's part of that thing I was sort of joking about with Charlotte. But like, it's definitely like these people are a big part of my life and what I'm thinking about. You know, when I go to bed at night, I'm thinking about something about, you know, from someone who posted something that I know was really meaningful. Yeah.
What, if anything, has most surprised you?
What has most surprised me? Let me think. Okay, let's narrow that down a little bit. What has most surprised me in, I guess, you know what? I mean, it's all of this, like really. It's like the fact that I feel like I kind of had a dream of like the way that I wished the world could all communicate with each other and stuff. And then it's like, oh my God, thanks to all these techie people. I don't understand what they do, but like it's all working. And so that I'm able to do the kind of media that it just didn't, none of these tools existed before, and it's what I really wanted to be doing, and that I get to do it, and that it's like the best combination of like live TV, live radio, the best of what I loved about print, you know, kind of all together.
I love this one. Who would play you in the movie about your life?
Okay. Who would? Okay, I want you guys to tell me. I think, well, actually, you know who optioned a couple years ago and is supposedly working on the movie of my life is Hilary
Really?
Swank. Yeah.
Damn, girl.
I know. I'll take it. No problem whatsoever. Yeah, she did. She optioned the rights like a couple years ago. She and her production partner. So that's fine. I'll take that. Someone said one time, Kate Hudson, a friend of mine said that. Actually, Jimmy Fallon said that. He said Kate Hudson. I don't know about that one. I think that's kind of one side of me. I'm not sure. I like the gravitas, you know, that Hilary Swank would bring to it.
What do you love about working in digital compared to print?
Well, just it's just like so. There's so much that I love about it. I love, of course, the immediacy of it, and the fact that it really is like I don't. There's so much involvement you can have through print, but it still is. There's a barrier, and mostly it's a time barrier. But there's also, so mostly, you know, I love that now you can put something up and you can see instantly what people are thinking about it, and you can respond to that, and you can tweak it, and you can be as real, like just be as transparent as I like to be. It's very natural for that. And then also you can try a lot more things because it's not, you know, there's not the burden of paper costs and postal costs and all that kind of stuff. So you can be much more experimental, which I like to be.
Is there one failure that has really shaped you? Or if the answer, there are many failures, you can feel free to list through them.
Yeah. Okay. Gosh. So many. God, they all just come flooding back. I remember the day that, this isn't the one that shaped me, but I just remembered the one that, the day that my Fox talk show, Jane show. Oh, that was actually, I know this is off topic, but that was actually an example of something where, like, the motivation to do it was not really the right motivation. And I feel like if I have a motivation for a project that's about a cause, it works. It works every single time. If my motivation is like, oh, they're gonna give me a show called The Jane Show, okay, great, that sounds good. Or if it's like money or anything like that, it never works out. But anyway, so the day that got canceled, that was really harsh because I didn't even know, and I just get up and like, my phone that they had provided me wasn't working, and the car didn't show up and everything. I was like, oh, okay. But I think Sassy magazine going out of business was pretty bad, not for me, because I actually left before it was sold and all that stuff. But it was harsh because I felt like, what are teenage girls going to do now? Like, I was able to help this group of teenage girls, but what are the next ones that are coming up? What are they going to read? So that was harsh.
That is tough. What's currently missing from the world of publishing that you would like to see?
Oh, gosh. Well, I feel like I have another, well, I said I have one good idea, and this is just like another version of the same idea. But I would like to see something for women like 40 plus that treats them as cool as they actually are. I feel like there's not anything like that out there. Thank you.
Awesome. How do you actually find the amazing authors, and how do you motivate them? Are they raw clay that you discover, or are they already amazing writers that just haven't intimately?
Yeah, usually I like finding writers often that aren't writers. The hardest writers to work with for me are the ones that have been writing at other magazines, for example, for long periods of time, and then they have all that kind of, that magazine speak is all so in them, and it's really hard to get out once it's in them. I like working often with writers who are not writers until they come to work with me, but they have a good voice, and they have a good personality, and I just get them to actually, sometimes I've actually sat with them and had them just tape what they're saying and transcribe it and show them that, like, that's their voice right there and that they are a writer. That's really satisfying. I've done that a few times. And then I motivate them. I don't know. I motivate them by just, it's just like it's such an exciting process. I feel like the whole thing, and getting to put stuff out there that's honest, and having and the response that you get when you do that.
Are you hiring?
Am I hiring?
Yeah.
Let's see. I mean, I would say always, because we're growing and growing and growing. So I guess the answer would be yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Y'all hear that, right? Let's see. How many magazines can you do at once?
How many? Okay. I've tried to, I feel like you could do now, well, okay, now with digital, I think you can do a lot at one time. Like, I'm not finding the same, doing ExoJane and ExoVane at the same time, I'm not finding nearly the same burden as like when I was, it's not the same time burden necessarily as when I was trying to do like Sassy Magazine and host that Fox Talk show and run another magazine I didn't even talk about, but Dirt magazine, which was a teenage boys magazine. Like, when I was trying to do a bunch of those at one time, it was more challenging. So I think with digital, you could run a bunch of properties at once. Yeah.
This is a related question. What's next? Says a sassy chick. And
I love the
is
sassy
there a book?
chicks.
Is there? Do you want to? I mean, you're doing this radio show now, and you're always out and around. Is there another media you'd like to work in again? Does television on the web interest you?
That definitely interests me. Yep. And I mean, there is. It's really likely we're going to do a reality show around ExoJane and ExoVane. We have finally a production company that I think is good for that. And so that'll be interesting. I'm mostly interested in what new technology comes out that I can use, even more than what already exists.
You've told me, you insist to me that you're not a technical person,
No.
and you're not, but you want to know what new technology is coming out. So how do you feel about technology then? And I can't imagine it scares you, but you seem to think that you're not embracing it when you are every day.
Well, I'm not like, yeah, I know I am. I guess I just feel like I'm not like, it's not going to ever be the same for me as like for my daughter, of course, who's just like growing up with it and shows me how to do things, on the iPad and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, I just focus on like what technology can do for people, and it's huge. It's huge. It's just, yeah, it's changed everything for me and what I'm able to do and the message I'm able to get out. I mean, we have now more readers on XO Jane every month than either Sassy or Jane magazines after they'd been around for 7-8 years. And so it's like just being able to reach that number of people that quickly is amazing.
The red light is blinking, so we are out of time. Thank you, Jane.
Thank you,
everyone.
Thank you so much.
Yay, Jane.
You guys are the best.